Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. I believe this is the first, this is the first episode of the new year. I do have a few calls that have come in, but I think I'm going to get to those in the next episode. I just want to focus real quickly on today on a game called Raccoon Sky Pirates. This is a really fun game. I've played it twice, once live at the table with my family, and then once with Carl Rodriguez and Amy and Cynthia. You guys can actually, that's going to go up on Carl's YouTube channel this week. So if it's up by the time I get ready to publish this, I'll go ahead and put a link to that video in the show description. But yeah, this is a really fun game. It's a really silly game. Raccoon Sky Pirates. So let me tell you a little bit about this game. This is the game is published by, I'm sorry, I'm switching over on my phone to an app so I can read the PDF. Comes from Hectic Electron. I think it's the only game they currently publish. This game, design, writing, layout, and illustrations in the booklet are attributed to Chris Sellers. This is the second edition of the game that I've got my hands on. And really where I got this several weeks ago is I just saw it on the shelf at DM Dave's. If you guys are familiar with DM Dave, he's published quite a few adventures for 5th edition D&D and some other stuff. He actually has a store, I think I've mentioned before, not far from where I live in Norman, Oklahoma. I don't live in Norman, but I live not far from Norman, Oklahoma. He has a shop there that he just opened last year, and I go in there pretty regularly when I'm in town. Anyway, I saw this on the shelf, and it was hilarious, like it would be a lot of fun. But this game is called Raccoon Sky Pirates. And this is a GM-less game. It's a role-playing game, but it's not really kind of an open-ended sandbox. You can do anything role-playing game. It is a little bit on rails. It probably shares a lot with some of those board games like Gloomhaven or Hero Quest, where there's some role-playing game elements to it, but there's also kind of some fixed things that are going on. You're kind of on a path where it's not it's just not a complete role-playing game like you think. It doesn't require a GM. It just requires one person to be familiar enough with the rules to kind of coordinate the setup and make sure the game proceeds. But that person can also play a character in the game. But this is, I believe, the second edition of the game because they have expanded some things. So what is the premise of the game? Well, in this game, you play raccoons. You live in a junkyard, which is full of trash. And the goal of the game is that you want even better trash. You know that somewhere out there's even better trash than what is there in the junkyard. So you have invented a flying ship out of spare parts in the junkyard. And the goal is to then fly into town until you get to a human house. And then you are going to raid the house for more stuff. And basically anything a raccoon wants in this game is trash. That's a generic term for loot or treasure. That's what you're trying to get a hold of. So you construct a flying ship. They give you a map of town, and you don't just go in your route to and from, particularly to the house you're trying to get to. You can pass through other areas of town. There's like an electrical relay station. There's a big box store. There's a hardware store. There's a storage unit place. You can always choose to stop there for a little while and try to steal some things from there that would be thematic from each of those sections. So if you think about kind of like a hex crawl, except you know exactly what it is. So the game operates in scenes. The first scene is leaving the junkyard to try to get to the house, and then what you do along the way. The second scene is trying to infiltrate the house. The third scene is raiding the house. And the fourth scene is escaping back to the junkyard before the ship collapses. Because, let's face it, this is a ship made out of spare parts and junk from a junkyard that has been assembled by a bunch of raccoons. So right from the get-go, it gets very complicated. So what you've got in the box set, you've got a booklet. It comes with a deck of complications. Now you can get this on PDF from them as well, so you don't have to have in place, or you can just order the deck without everything else if you want to print out the PDFs but have this deck of cards. It does have a way to convert a standard deck of playing cards into the complication deck. You've got 4 scenes. There are 13 cards per scene, and so anyway, these things are complications that you sort of play when something goes wrong to add chaos and interesting things to the scene. 12-sided die, which comes with one 12-sided die. Of course, there are other places to get your hands on 12-sided die. You just need one, but it'd be nice to have one for every player. But only one comes in the box. But hey, it's me. I had tons of 12-sided die to hand out to anybody else who comes over to play, right? And then you need fresh copies of the character sheets, the neighborhoods map, the ship sheet, which describes how you build your ship, and one house sheet based on which house you're going to try to raid. So they offer you a number of houses to choose from. And you can get the game, you've got to pay for obviously the rule book, but you can always get copies of the character sheets and the ship sheet that you can have to, these in the neighbor house sheets, things you may mark on and re-roll. One copy of each comes in the box, but you can download more from the website, so you can reuse it. But if you want the rules, that's what you have to pay for the PDF for that, and that's at hecticelectron.com, their website. And of course, you're going to need pencils on your character sheets to take notes and things like that. But to start the game, actually, before you get into this first seed of embarking on your journey, you've got to choose which raccoon you want to play. So you've got a number of raccoons to choose from. Let me shift over to the play sheets so I can describe those for you. This comes with the original game, 6 raccoon characters. Now, I believe they've expanded this, so what you can do is there are also 6 possums, and then there are 6 other characters: 2 pigeons, 2 rats, and 2 cockroaches. So you don't just have to play raccoons. But let me briefly describe these raccoon characters for you. So Brisket Jack, the swashbuckler. We'll use him as an example, and I'll go through and explain some of the other characters. So what happens with each character is you pick which one you want. Every character has 3 traits that are called approaches. For Brisket Jack, his approaches are cunning, deft, and stylish. You decide what you want to do on your turn, and then you roll the die. Each character sheet has a table on the bottom half of the sheet, 1 to 12, that explains what happens and which approach matches to it. If what you roll, for example, if Brisket Jack wants to do something in a cunning way, but he rolls an 8, on his table it says be acrobatic, and that is stylish. Well, that means he fails. And it is the job of the player to then not only have declared what they want to do, but then to narrate exactly how they fail. So they're going to be acrobatic, trying to be doing something cunning, but they wind up doing something acrobatic and it fails. And then you go on to the next player. How we've played it both times is even if you succeed, the person sort of, let's see here, fast talk, if you roll a 6, that matches cunning, fast talk, or confuse someone. So if you'd rolled a 6, well, then the player would narrate how, in whatever they were attempting to do, they used fast talk or did something to confuse someone in a cunning way that allowed them to succeed. I think optionally you could just say it succeeds as they describe, but it seemed to be more fun the other way. So that's the basic way the game works. Is you declare what you want to do, roll, and and then narrate your success or failure based on the results of the roll. Okay. The other thing that each thing has that kind of can change every game is it asks you to declare the look of your raccoon. You got 3 options for Brisket Jack. It's gray and grizzled, rotund and taut, or sly and mischievous. You just have to pick one. Set a personal goal, which you can use as more of a, again, drive for how you describe what your character does, why they do what they do, the choices they make. Win fame and glory. The second choice is stage a daring rescue, successfully or not. or to steal a large hunk of meat. Those are brisket jacks. Every character will have different ones they can choose from. And then each character has 3 questions. It says, ask the player to your left. For brisket jack, the 3 choices are, where's your favorite place to adventure? Where is our favorite place to adventure together? Why do you look to me for leadership, and is that really a good idea? And third, we were littermates. What secret do we share? So again, these are all just tools that the players can use to describe these scenes, because it really is very much a storytelling type of game where you're just kind of making this up as you interact with one another, and the dice and the cards add a little bit of randomness to it. And then they ask you to say, what is one thing you want to steal for brisket jack? What's one thing you want to steal, and how would that improve life in the junkyard? Okay, so now you've got some motivations, some things to drive forward your character. So some of the other raccoons, in addition to brisket jack, he's the swashbuckler. Maria Triple Extra Large, or Maria Triple XL, the Colossus. So this is portrayed as a very large raccoon. Her approaches are strong, deft, and brave. Vibrissa, the inventor, who you will see portrayed in the live play that should be posting on YouTube soon. Cunning, inventive, and YOLO. YOLO, you only live once. Those are Vibrissa's approaches. Torchkey is a daring thief of a raccoon, sneaky, deft, and precise. Kit, the littlest raccoon, little cute juvenile raccoon. Sneaky, sensitive, and YOLO are Kit's approaches. And then finally we have Rabies Eddie, the ultimate beast. His approaches are strong, aggressive, and YOLO. And Rabies Eddie, someone has played Rabies Eddie in both games I've been in, and it's been fun both times. So it was my son, and it was Carl Rodriguez when we played live. Again, tune in to see Carl do some funny stuff as Rabies Eddie. Just to give you an example of some of these other ones, if you want to go with possums, the possums are Squinty Pete, the ambitious possum, who's cunning, deft, and inspiring. Priscilla, the brave possum, who's strong, valiant, and persistent. Lazarus, the clever possum, who is cunning, inventive, and fearless. Virginia, the possum with joeys, who's sneaky, deft, and everywhere. I assume that probably if you're going to play Virginia, I don't think you have to. I mean, you could just constantly reference that you have a bunch of joeys, but I actually envision playing this as a mother possum who's going on this adventure with, a half a dozen juvenile possums clinging to her back. Zort, the sleepy possum, sneaky, sensitive, and persistent. Gator, the ferocious possum, probably the possum equivalent of Rabies Eddie. But you can't call him that because possums can't get rabies, if I remember correctly. Strong, aggressive, and fearless. Then you have 2 rats. Ratcliffe, the sophisticated rat, who is deft, gracious, and elegant. Dash, the furtive rat, who is sneaky, deft, and fast. Spitfire, the intrepid pigeon, brave, fast, and daring. Kitty Hawk, the aerobatic pigeon, graceful, daring, and precise. And you have 2 cockroaches. Inch, the curious roach, sneaky, sensitive, and YOLO. And Rad, the indestructible roach, strong, fearless, and persistent. So I think it would even be fun to get, you can get up 6 players here. If you could get maybe, 3 possums and then maybe 3 other players to play one of the other species, have a good mix. And then you have a ship sheet. Your ship is called the Dumpster Fire. I guess you could call it something else. And this is a ship that's assembled from junk in the junkyard. And so you have to answer some questions about, because the ship can be different for every game. First question is, how does the ship float? Hot air, hydrogen or helium, swamp gas, dozens of helicopter blades, mechanical wings, magnets. It's got the wingding thing, so insert your expletive there. Something magnets, freaking magnets. Tesla coils, Cavorite, dark energy, or the 5th element. Choose what causes the ship to float. Then you have a list of 6 pairings that are either strengths or liabilities. You get to pick 2 strengths, and then by default, it has all the other liabilities. So it's the pairings are slow and fast, noisy and quiet, vulnerable and armored, rickety or tightly fastened together, hard to steer or maneuverable, unarmed or well-armed. Again, you pick from fast, quiet, sturdily armored, tightly fastened together, maneuverable, or well armed. Pick 2 of those, and then of the ones you don't pick, those opposite traits become liabilities of the ship. You can add some quirks if you'd like, and there's a place to keep trash stolen from the voyage. The other questions you have to ask: which wrecked car is in your ship? 72. It could be either here. 72 Volkswagen Beetle, which gives it ability to evade. 57 Cadillac DeVille, which allows it to absorb shocks. Or a school bus, which you can find a useful piece of trash laying about in the school bus. There's a table of 100 bits of trash you can find included in here for inspiration. But you're also just allowed to make it up. If you don't have an idea, you could look at that table. If you wanted to bring out a D100 along with the game, you could probably just roll for it randomly if you wanted to. But mostly those are just there if you want them. Everything else you can make up. The only dice you have to roll are those 12-sided die when you declare your action to see if you succeed or not. It asks what home appliance is in your ship. You could have a food processor, which can cut through anything, a vacuum cleaner, which you can use to grab hold of something, or a washing machine, which allows you to remove one complication card. And we'll get into complication cards in a minute. Which carnival ride is in your ship? The octopus, which can reach out with its long arms. Or the graviton, which can use to eject trash, or a raccoon. Or the zipper, which allows you to scoop something up and pull it into the ship. Again, you pick one of these. So you pick what kind of vehicle it's made from on the base. You pick what appliance, what sort of carnival ride attachments you've put to it. And that gives your ship some capabilities for how you can kind of imagine negotiating some of these scenes, at least when you're on board the ship. And then it has a problem track. What happens is whenever you fail when you're on board the ship, you have to either check off a problem track 1 to 6. When you get to 6, that's an explosion. The ship explodes or it's otherwise destroyed. Every raccoon for themselves, abandoned ship. Right? So it goes from straining to a problem with the helm. First it's under strain, rivets come loose, then there's a problem with the helm at a 2. At a 3, it starts to make noise. At a 4, rivets start to come loose. At a 5, things start to go wrong with the gears. And at 6, there's an explosion. Now, on the problem cards that you use in your journey when you're on the ship, the suits and the value of the card are tell you when the card comes into play at what level of problem. How the problem cards work is everybody draws a number of problem cards. I think if you've got 3 players, I believe everybody draws 3 cards. If you've got more players than that, everybody just draws 2 cards. The problems don't necessarily cause the ship to have more strain or to inch towards exploding, but they do create some humorous and other things that you have to now incorporate into the scene and account for whenever you're on the ship or whenever you're trying to do things on the ship. Sometimes it can give you a tip as to how to narrate what goes wrong or what goes right. So that's the how the cards work. I'll describe some of the cards in a minute, but right now while I'm looking through this PDF that has some of these handout sheets, let me go through those. So there's a sheet that has the neighborhoods of the town. You start in the junkyard of the upper left corner, and then you have to chart your way to one of 4 houses. You've got a 1980s house with a big 4-car garage. It just looks like a family home you would have seen in an 80s sitcom, probably. There's a McMansion, which is a big fancy house. There's a bungalow house. And then there is a ranch house. So different sorts of styles of family homes. But to get to these places, different places you can go through are the electrical station, a shipping warehouse like a UPS shipping station, chemical plant, storage lockers, hardware mega store. Pardon my dog, they're playing. Hey, hush. Office building, police station and dispatch center, supermarket, the possum woods, so you could actually go through the woods where possums live. Golf course, airport, farmland, Walmart, big box store, car mechanics garage, upscale designer mall, a strip mall, So these are all places, and a fast food joint. So these are all places you pass through on your way to the ship. One of the rules is, one of the things you do when you're on the ship, you can try to do is steer the ship to an adjacent space. If you fail, the ship doesn't go anywhere. If you fail twice, the ship drifts in a random direction. And I think since you've got, I would probably just say, it doesn't say how to determine what. I would probably just roll a 12-sided die and treat those like hands of the clock, and you drift in that direction. But you can determine that on your own. This is not a rules-heavy game. Anyway, each house also has a set of problems. So once you get to the house and you're either trying to infiltrate, you're trying to infiltrate the house and raid the house in the scenes 2 and 3. Noisy. There's 4 things on the track. The first is noisy. Keep it down, why don't you? There's a little description there. The second problem is a pet wakes up. You've woken up the dog. Describe what happens. When you get to the third tick mark on the problem track, it's humans. You woke up the humans. They haven't seen you yet. So far, they're fumbling around in the dark. Describe what happens. And then finally, 4, panic. They've seen you. Cue the fast-paced banjo music or the Benny Hill music, if you want, saxophone music. And describe the mad chase to the various parts of the house. Get back to the ship somehow, easily or at cost. Describe what happens. So you're still having to take actions and then succeed or fail, but you're trying to get out of the house. And of course, the bigger the house, the more complicated that can be. Right. So then you've got floor plans of the 4 houses to use. Again, you can see these live when you watch the video. But that's the handout. So let me describe these complication cards just for example. So one for the ship. Fog blankets the neighborhood, making it hard to find your way. So whenever you take an action that involves the helm, here's where it comes into play. When you've got complications with the helm, once you get to that stage on the problem track, that's really where you would have to account for this once the helm becomes difficult. A fierce fire pummels you. A firestorm pummels you, tossing your ship like a toy. What are some other ones here? The full moon reveals your ship to anyone who looks up. A wing or fin comes loose. If you look at some of these ones with related to the house, the ship's got entangled in the house power's line and it might hit the chimney. Neighbors are looking out the window. It's eerily quiet, magnifying any noise you make. So these are complications you add to the scene when you fail in your attempt, when you fail that roll to do whatever you're trying. And then they come into play whenever things on these problem tracks that they don't cause the problem, but they certainly help you narrate why things are going bad. I think some of the other ones we came up in play was at one point a nest of squirrels in the gutter as you're trying to get into the house has noticed you and is now making noise. One was once they infiltrated the house, the house cat stumbles across you. It wants to cut a deal, so now you've got to negotiate with the house cat so it doesn't wake up the humans. It gets sillier and sillier as more of these take place. So I'm not doing it justice in my description. You just have to either play it or watch us play it to see how funny it gets. Again, you're basically, it's a storytelling role-playing game where you're basically creating an episode of a Looney Tunes cartoon. Let's see, am I forgetting anything else about this? That's it. Let me go back through the scenes real quick just to make sure I didn't forget anything. So you've got your characters, you've got your ship, and then it says to have a facilitator that's at least read through the rules and familiar with things and can walk everybody through setup. Build your ship, and then you go through the scenes. When you go through the scenes of the game. When you're flying the ship through the neighborhoods, again, you can do one of 3 things. You move the ship on the map from one space to the next. We used the die for that when we were playing live. Just set one down on the map. We used a token for it when we were playing online through Roll20. But you move the ship from one map on the space to the next. When you make an unhelpful roll, the location you're in will give you ideas of what's going wrong. So if you're, say, flying over the power substation, maybe you bump into the electric lines, or something happens there, or you're flying over the police station. Maybe one of the police see you. The location will give you some idea of how things go wrong. You may decide that the ship is stalled, or you can move it in a random direction. But if there are two failed things in a row, it's going to move in a random direction. The second thing you could try to do is snag some trash from the location you're in. Even though you're trying to get to a house to take something from the humans that live there, you float over a hardware store or a Walmart supercenter or shopping mall. Again, you can think about some kind of trash you want to stop and try to steal from there. And again, just because you say you want to do that doesn't mean you succeed. Or you can deal with an unforeseen consequence. So what happens when there's a mishap, when you fail, you've got to track a problem check, or you can play one of those complication cards in your hand to not have to check the one on the problem track. And so how that works is, though, eventually everybody's going to run out of cards, and you're going to have to check the things on the problem track, right? So between the die really being the only arbiter of success, it's really just a lot of times a matter of luck, right? And your own descriptions of things. Now, what we did the second time we played, dealing with an unforeseen consequence, we sort of ruled that means you can move one of those complication cards off out of the scene. I don't think that's what you're supposed to do, but we did that, and we had a lot of fun doing it that way. So the scene is really a chance to describe the ship and how it moves. You can really get into this goofy, you've got a VW Beetle with, the arms of a spider carnival ride whipping around it, and it's powered by dark matter, and, there's a vacuum attached to it that you can use the hose to grab things. And it's just, you can get, imagine how silly that is, as long as players are being creative and very descriptive. You finish the scene once you've kind of gotten to the house that you want to get to. The second scene is board the house, and in this scene you have to find a way to park the ship or keep it from crashing into the house. That's one thing you can do on your turn. You can try to find a way to get into the house, or you can deal with unforeseen consequences. When you finish the scene, when somebody makes it successfully into the house, that creates a path for others to follow. Then you can move on to scene 3, which is steal trash. This is the main event. This is really what you're here for, trying to steal trash from the house without waking up the humans that live there. So on your turn, you can steal something from the house. You can move to a new room you can take a stolen item to the ship. If doing so seems challenging, it may warrant a roll. But although mostly you can assume this happens without a hitch, you just take your thing back to the ship and nothing else happens. You can deal with unforeseen consequences. Once the residents have waken up, though, due to going up the problem track, you need to escape. And this requires at least one roll from each raccoon to get out of the house. You finish the scene when one of two things happen. The residents find you and you have to get out, or you've ransacked the house, you've got everything you could possibly want, and you decide to leave. Scene 4 is escape. You're back on the ship. All the complications that were there and the problems that were there when you left the ship from the first scene are still there, and you have the chance for more to happen as you now have to make your way back to the junkyard across the map. The problem is you've got somebody else after you. It could be the neighborhood watch that you've alerted. It could be rival trash animals. There are actually some cards that come up, or some problems that come up where you bump into another group of animals who are trying to raid the house, and so now you've made them mad at you. So on your turn, you can either move the ship, you can fight the neighborhood watch or your rival trash animals who are trying to cause problems for you. Again, you can deal with unforeseen consequences. This scene ends when either the ship blows up or you make it back to the junkyard. And finally, you enjoy your ill-gotten gains. There's some advanced rules to keep going. So whether you in a victory or defeat, you can start another game either with a new ship, or you can repair your current ship. And that's where those quirks on the ship really comes in. You can upgrade your ship if you decided to keep going in sort of campaign style and add a quirk. You got to change one liability to a strength. and then add a quirk that reflects something that changed to the ship. You can change the personal goal of your raccoons if you want to keep the same raccoons. And there's some other rules in here about how to keep playing the same raccoons. Of course, you could swap out for other characters as well. And there's some, let's see, all for one and one for all. On your turn, in addition to your role, you can ask other raccoons to help you. You ask before you roll. So there's some ways to add more rules to the game, rules for fixing problems, for using the other characters. The fabled mega game, they say here, finally, is a game with all 18 trash animals that has not been play tested, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. You have 3 tables with 3 different ships, using 3 separate complication decks, and moving your ships in the same neighborhood and map. So I guess you could either coordinate or you could be rivals. But again, this is a game that, again, come plan to be silly, be stupid, try to make each other laugh, try to make yourself laugh, and you'll have a really good time no matter what happens. So that's about it for Raccoon Sky Pirates. Again, played it twice. I intend to play it again. I know Carl and Amy have discussed the idea of me running some games at the con they sponsor down in Houston in October, and this is probably one that I'll put in to run if I do wind up doing that. And probably will hopefully play it a few more times with family and friends between now and then. So again, I'll put a link to Hectic Electron in the notes. I'll put a link to the video. It's going to be up on YouTube. But yeah, Raccoon Sky Pirates. It's a lot of fun. And so, you have any thoughts on that? Any questions? Any comments? Feel free to drop me a message. Otherwise, I'll be back with another episode sooner or later. Whatever you're doing out there, wherever you're at, take care of yourself and try to make somebody happy today. See you later. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art is by Dave Bone. Be sure to check out his stuff at ironseer.com. You can leave me a message. I have my SpeakPipe account linked to the show description. You can also send me an email at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Just embed a voice memo, or I'll just read the text to your email during a future episode. Once again, thanks so much for listening.